In 1932, a widow in Tulsa raised 4 children on $4 a week for groceries. And on the mornings there was nothing else in the house, she poured warm milk over toasted bread and called it breakfast. That one's number 5 on this list. In 1934, a farmhand outside Des Moines lived the same way. He never let a pot of cornmeal go to waste, slicing yesterday's leftovers thick and dropping them in hot fat before sunrise. Eating standing at the stove because there wasn't time to sit. That one's number 8. These were the poor man breakfasts, the meals families leaned on across the country during the Great Depression, when a stove and a little flour had to do the work. Groceries couldn't. Hit that subscribe button. Let's count down the 10 forgotten poor man breakfasts of the Great Depression. 10. Toast with sugar water. When there was no jam left in the jar, mothers in mill towns reached for the sugar bowl instead, dissolving it into warm water, pouring it over toasted bread, letting it soak in before anyone touched a fork. A 5-pound sack of sugar ran about 25 cents in 1933, so every spoonful was measured out like it mattered, because it did. What came out of it tasted like a memory of something sweeter than it actually was, warm and thin, but it said the same thing every time. There's still something good here. 9. Grits with drippings. Every farmhouse kitchen across the rural South kept a coffee can by the stove, filled with whatever fat was left from the last meat that had been cooked. Nothing wasted, not even the grease from a dime's worth of salt pork. Grits, boiled slow in water and salt until they stopped fighting the spoon, got that fat spooned over the top in place of butter, and the smell of last night's supper rode straight into this morning's breakfast, smoky and rich in a way no seasoning could fake. That coffee can on the stove was its own kind of insurance policy, and grits were how you cashed it in. 8. Coffee substitute. Chicory. By the early 1930s, a pound of real coffee could run 25 cents, more than some households could spare for a single morning ritual. So kitchens across Louisiana turned to what grew for free along the roadside instead. Chicory root, dug up and roasted and sometimes cut with grain, got boiled dark the same way real coffee would, then drunk black. Milk was for the children, not the pot. It was bitter, closer to burnt earth than coffee, but it filled the same 15 minutes at the table, and in New Orleans people kept drinking it long after coffee prices came back down, because by then it had stopped being a substitute and started being home. 7. Bread and lard. Before dawn broke over the coal fields of West Virginia, miners' wives were already up in kitchens still dark an hour before anyone else stirred, spreading lard thick over bread the way you'd spread butter, salting it, sending their husbands underground with something in their stomachs. A pound of lard ran about 10 cents in 1932, half of what butter cost, and it sat heavier too, coating the mouth, warm going down when the bread was fresh. There was nothing to season and nothing to dress it up with, which was the point. Fuel first, and whatever comfort came with it was extra. 6. Egg-stretched pancakes. One egg had to cover an entire griddle's worth of pancakes when a dozen eggs ran near 30 cents in 1932, so the batter got beaten thinner than anyone would call proper. Water standing in for milk, flour doing most of the talking. What came off the pan was lacy at the edges, almost translucent, crisping in a way a thick pancake never manages. And every family member's share of that single egg came down to careful spooning rather than counting plates. It was arithmetic disguised as breakfast, and the answer always came out to enough. 5. Biscuits and gravy stretched thin. In the hollers of Appalachia, biscuits got rolled out small and thin on purpose, not for style but so a 5-cent sack of flour could turn into 2 dozen of them instead of 1. The gravy, flour, drippings, and milk cut with water, got thinned until it barely held its shape, then poured on generously so the plate looked fuller than the pantry actually was. Nothing bought at a store ever came that cheap, and nothing bought at a store ever asked that many hands to make it. What landed on the table told the children everything was fine, whether or not it was. 4. Fried mush slices. This is the one the farmhand outside Des Moines was making at the start of this list. Cold cornmeal mush from the night before, sliced thick and dropped into hot fat, until the outside crackled and the inside stayed soft, almost custardy. A 10-cent bag of cornmeal, cooked once as mush and then again as this, could carry a family through most of a week's breakfasts, And that habit of not wasting a single pot twice was less a recipe than a way of thinking. It kept whole families fed through winters that refused to end. 3. Cornmeal mush with molasses. A nickel bought a jug of molasses in 1931, enough to sweeten a family's breakfast bowl for a whole week, which made it one of the cheapest comforts a mother had to offer. The mush itself was nothing more than cornmeal, water, and salt, stirred slow over low heat until it thickened, then poured into bowls with the molasses left to pool dark against the pale grain underneath. It sat heavy and warm in the stomach, faintly sweet, the kind of breakfast that stayed with you past noon, a small, dark sweetness in a season that didn't hand out many. 2. Watery oatmeal. Across Detroit and Chicago through the early 30s, oatmeal pots got stretched thinner than the box ever called for, because a thin pot fed more mouths than a thick one, and a 20-cent sack of oats could last close to 2 weeks if the water kept coming. What landed in the bowl was plain, almost bland, but there was something steadying about holding something warm in cold hands before a long day of work. No box of cereal has ever asked that much of anyone, or given that much back for so little. 1. Milk toast. This is the version the widow in Tulsa was making at the start of this list, the one we opened on. Bread toasted, laid in a bowl, warm milk poured over until the edges went soft, and the middle held its shape. A quart of milk cost about 10 cents in 1932, and on the mornings there was nothing else to offer. This is what filled the bowl instead. It smelled like a kitchen with the heat finally on. Plain, warm, and comforting in a way that never needed explaining, because it wasn't a celebration. It was proof that someone still meant to take care of you. Pick one of these, just one, and make it this week. Sit at the table, not the couch. Set a place, even if it's only for you. Eat it slow and let it take the time it's supposed to take. Tell me in the comments, was it milk toast or fried mush slices that your own family made? These meals were never about being poor. They were about refusing to disappear, one plain breakfast at a time.